Hello and a very good evening. Welcome back to AFC News Day. It's great to be back. Matt just looked like he's seen a ghost. I don't know why he looked so scared for a second. But I am here with Matt. We're back for another episode. We've got lots to talk about tonight. We're going to be here for the next hourish. We're going to chill out, have some chat about Arsenal. Make sure to get in the comments box in the chat. Make sure to give us your opinions on the season so far. We'll talk about it. We'll dissect it, and hopefully by the end of this, we'll feel good about ourselves, as you should always feel after watching our content. But Matt's here. Matt, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. Been a bit under the weather recently, but feeling a little better now, so can't really complain. How are
Do you
you?
know what? I'm good, thank you, mate. Speaking of under the weather, Yem is in the chat um, tonight. He's got COVID,
Oh,
so everyone, I'm sure you'll all join me in sending our best to Yembele, friend of the channel, most regular guest on the channel. Yeah, hope you're feeling better soon, Yem, and we'll make sure to get you back on soon. Um, Matt, it's been a really, really good start to the season. I think it's fair to say there's been some tough opposition, but I think Arsenal have come through it well. What's been your assessment so far of the campaign?
I think it's been very good. I think when the schedule got released, I think generally people were quite happy, but we also very much knew that we needed to get off to a good start because when you have Villa away, which was the big game last season where we dropped points in and couldn't really do anything against Villa in general, you had Spurs away, which I believe it's about 10 years since we last played them away first, bar the COVID season. And then when you have City away in your first 5 or 6 games, alongside Brighton at home, which has previously been a bit of a difficult game for you, and Wolves at home, where it's Wolves at home, nice start. It just says it all that we've come relatively unscathed. 14 out of I can't even remember the maths of it. Two draws and the rest wins. I can't ask for more really. And the frustrating thing is those draws weren't wins because they should have been. A win at the Etihad
Yeah.
would have been seriously special,
Phew.
particularly given the circumstances. But it is what it is. And then, of course, against Brighton, the red card, which controversial in my opinion, to say the least. But otherwise, I've been really, really happy, and to know that I think every season we've almost evolved even more from big injuries. I think you
Mm.
take a few years ago, we'd have one or two players out, and it would crumble. It would completely crumble. You'd have the likes of Cedric, Rob Holding, El Neni, etc., 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 come into the team, and we'd look a shadow of ourselves. Not that we were incredibly special then. Last season, I think we improved a lot, or even 2 years ago we improved a lot. But the second Saliba got injured, we were finished. This season or last season, a few injuries, and you always feel like if a Ben White's out, we're not going to be in a good place at all. Obviously, Timber doing his ACL so early on was absolutely brutal. This time out, we've had Ben White not there for the last few games. We've not had to play him through injury, and we've had two other first team fullbacks out due to injury, and we've still managed to cope completely fine with the hardest fixture list, with Europe, with two really difficult European fixtures, alongside having our captain out, alongside a few other key absentees. I really can't ask for much more.
Yeah, it has been a really impressive start to the season. You alluded to it through the stats of the league season so far. Arsenal have won four, drawn two, still undefeated, lost none. Scored 12 goals, conceded five, and got 14 points in third position in the table. City also on 14, and Liverpool have had a really good start to the season. They're in top spot. They've won five and lost one. So yeah, at the moment, Arnie Slot's Liverpool the team to catch. Yeah, man, it's been a really good start. I think looking back on September in general, I mean, you've gone through it all, to be honest, haven't you? You look back to the start of the season, that game against Wolves, win against Wolves, then you go away to Aston Villa, and then 1-1 with Brighton. That one with the red card was the really frustrating game. But then Arsenal have really kind of picked up over September, going away to Tottenham, winning 1-0. Gabriel, he loves a header away from home. Atalanta, that was a really frustrating game, wasn't it, Matt? The 0-0 away from home against a really good team who won the Europa League last season, right?
I
Um,
think it's sometimes just time to realise that you have a European fixture away from home against a very good and underrated side in
Yeah.
between Spurs and City away is probably not going to be particularly pretty.
And you take in mind that Arsenal did that and went away in a really tough game to Atalanta on the Thursday, then played Manchester City on the Sunday, and City had played on the Wednesday at home. So Arsenal had travelling to do and everything involved, and then to go to the Etihad and get a 2-2 draw. Again, we'll get stuck into the nitty gritty of these bits in a bit. But then to bring us up to speed, Arsenal beat Bolton Wanderers 5-1 in the League Cup. Some really nice debuts for some of the youngsters there. And then 4-2 against Leicester City. And the most recent result, Arsenal 2, Paris Saint-Germain 0. So, yeah, we're well and truly underway. We've got one more game until the international break across the Premier League. Arsenal will play Southampton. I mean, a fixture that's particularly close to home for me, but yeah, Arsenal against Southampton, and then we will break until the 19th of October when Arsenal play Bournemouth away. But we'll get there when we get there. Matt, I want to talk about since we were last on, the last time we did a stream was just before the Spurs game. That was a brilliant win, but I mean, I guess that's I think we kind of gone over that hill in some ways. I want to talk about the Manchester City game because it's still very relevant, still very in the forefront of my mind. You went, didn't you? I mean, first of all, you went. Talk to us about the experience up in Manchester, the match day experience. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was pretty special. I think I've been to Manchester once for City in the Cup, which was good fun. You know, you had what
Yeah.
7,000, 8,000 Arsenal fans in
What was the score in that
Manchester.
one? That was a narrow defeat, wasn't it?
That was 1-0. Nathan Ake scored late on a really nice finish, and then City just saw the game out, which was frustrating. But are United losing?
I don't know. I don't have the game on. I'm
Gem
guessing
just
based.
put.
I'm guessing off what Yems commented, they might be losing now.
I'll have a quick look just because he's. Yep, there you go.
I'm
Brilliant.
according to Google, it's still. Oh no, it is 3-2 now. Wow, fair
Crazy.
play.
But
Yeah,
back
Manchester. That was
to
Manchester.
back to Manchester. Yeah, going then was nice. A Friday night FA Cup was cool, but for one, I think there was very little expectation. It was kind of like, obviously we're a very good team. Obviously we want to win. Obviously we can win. Like we can beat City. It's not like the days where we'd go there and we'd be like 8th or 9th place, or even just completely destroyed, to put it simply. There was a somewhat of a belief that we could do something against them in the cup, but it wasn't really to be, and there wasn't particularly much pressure. It was kind of just fun. Whereas this time round, all the pressure was on this fixture. Everyone knows that even though it's 5 or 6 games in, everyone knows quite how much this game means. And to have that type of pressure, that type of environment, that type of, I don't want to say hostility because I'm not going to make it
Mm,
out something it isn't. But at the same time, you could tell there's a bit of an edge towards it, even with the fans before the game. The tram before was quite funny. Nothing particularly personal, but the lead up to walking to the away section,
mm.
a classic football, really, for the equivalent of handbags, really, without any contact. Just
Well, and you were
oh,
getting involved in the handbags, were you?
oh mate, I was all over it.
Oh.
Not even like physical handbags, I should say, because I don't really know what I'm on about at this point. But
But just a bit of screaming and shouting.
yeah, just a bit of an edge to it. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, I mean, first 10 minutes, I was fearing for my life. I was like, "Yep, we're going to get bashed here." I watched the game back actually, and I was kind of surprised that we weren't as bad as I thought early on. I thought that
Mm,
City completely dominated us, and the first goal was waiting to happen, like the spaces in behind. But I
yeah.
think one thing very underrated about that goal specifically was Haaland staying onside. I thought it was really, really good. He had a long time to kind of keep himself onside while Saliba and
Yeah.
Gabriel were both trying to step up. And then when he's 1-on-1, you know what happens. And I don't even think watching it back, Rodri was the turning point. I think mentally it maybe was a bit. And obviously
Mm,
it's brutal for him to have done his ACL and his MCL, I believe. But from this game alone, I think being there for us to go have Rodri, obviously, unfortunately, as I say, for him to be subbed off, we didn't know how serious or anything like that. But for him to be subbed off was, of course, a big boost just looking at the game in isolation. And then for a minute later, Calafiori to go put the ball top bins out of not nothing, but relatively nothing was
mm.
complete and utter chaos. And mentally it went from, oh, this is just going to be a 2-0 or 3-0. Because before the game, I'm normally very optimistic, but before the game, I wasn't optimistic at all. I thought we'd lose 2-0, 2-1. I thought we'd get comfortably beat, to be honest.
Yeah.
And 1-1 happens. First half we're really, really good. Obviously, the injustice slash the right decision, depends how you look at it, for Trossard's red card. Obviously, us going 2-1 up as well. Magalhaes scoring another header, which was another sensational moment to be involved in. I guess it's one of those games in terms of more in the match day experience, to be like, I was there when, Calafiori did what he did, there for such a huge game. Obviously, John Stone scoring late on was horrific, to say the least. I've been angry at football games, but I've never, ever, ever felt as devastated as I did when he scored, because it was just so deflating and heartbreaking to see. Because the closer you get to the end of the game, the more you start thinking, hold on, we could actually beat City here. And no matter what Twitter or no matter what media or anything like that wants to tell you, beating City at the Etihad is not something teams do. It's just simply not. So for us to have done it, particularly it being a stomping ground for us in the past, would be pretty special. But it is what it is. And in general, the matchday experience was quality. The travel on the way there and back, and nearly missed my train on the way there because of delays, which was not very fun. And then
You
on
got
the
the
way
train
back
up to Manchester.
to Crewe and then to Manchester, yeah.
That cannot have been cheap. The trains these days are so expensive, aren't they?
It wasn't too bad, to be honest. It wasn't
Okay.
too bad.
Well, sorry, I sidetracked you there. I think my general feeling about it, Matt, was that as much as it was devastating that John Stone scored that late on, and in the pub I was watching, my mates gave me pelters for that it was coming, it was always going to happen. I think it was, for me, any kind of result in that situation you take, and I agree with you. As much as Arsenal held on, and it could have been a massive, famous win at the Etihad, and if Arsenal had hung on to win that game, then that would have been an incredible one. But I mean, the big talking point that wasn't about the red card, because I still almost don't quite understand what part of Trossard actually got sent off for. But I think the main, obviously, thing that came out of the game was how Manchester City decided to put every single player up for interview after the game. So clearly everyone was commenting on it, which was interesting. But more to the point, they a lot of the players were really outspoken about how the fact of Arsenal are that they were so defensive. They clearly didn't come here to win. And I just thought, and they said that before. Rodri made a big thing of it last season, didn't he, against Arsenal? It was like, they came here to play for a draw. And I just think for Mikel Arteta, there's a way you can go about things in that situation. Trossard's just been sent off. You're down to 10 men. You go into half time. You've got time to implement a game plan that everyone can stick to and know their job and what they've got to do for the rest of the half. And he clearly did that. He sat everyone down and decided that he was going to set up in this 5-4 formation, which was pretty brutal. I think it was probably the longest half of football I've ever seen in my life. I never want to have to go through something like that again, just because of what it was, defense against attack, and it was just relentless, and there was nothing Arsenal could do about it. And they did really, really well. And I mean, I guess the point I'm getting to here is I don't know what Manchester City, they're all like, Arsenal have lost our respects, and they only came here to play for a draw. But I'm like, so what? The only way you would have respected them if they, went for it and tried to play, because that'd be suicidal. I don't know about you, Matt, but it would literally be just self-sabotage, in the way that if Arsenal went for it and kept the same formation against pretty much any other, if it was against, like a mid-table lower team, absolutely sure, why not go for it? But against Manchester City, one of the best teams, if not the best team on the ball in the world, it would be self-sabotage. And I think that it was the only real option. Arsenal had a lead to protect, and Arteta clearly believed his side could at least come away with a point, and they did. That's my feelings on it. I think, and also, I don't know about you, but in Bukayo Saka's interview the other day, he said, I thought he spoke really well on it, and he said there's been a lot of talk about the style we play with, And it's like, oh, it depends completely on the context of each game. And in the context of the Manchester City game, man, they were never going to go for it in the second half, or Manchester City would have probably won 3 or 4-1. We saw it before Xhaka got sent off at the Etihad and Arsenal lost 5-0. So, I mean, if that's the only way to get Manchester City's respect, then I don't think Arsenal are going to do that.
I think there's a. I don't want to, throw shades at City here or Pep teams or anything like that, because I admire Pep hugely as a coach and such. But I also think that there's this sense of expecting the opposition almost to make their life quite easy a lot of the time in terms of the way they speak and whatnot. And I think the second a team tries to get under them a bit, tries to rattle them a bit, doesn't play into their hands, sits back, tries to hit them on counters. Well, not really in our case, but you get the point. I think they get a bit tetchy, a bit angry, a bit entitled, And at the end of the day, what I love so much about Mikel is I think he's so pragmatic. And I think City was a great example of that and how he's adapted his in-game management as well as a coach. I think taking Saka off for half time, no one really questioned it, I don't think. But you're taking off your captain, your best player, arguably at half time, without Erdegaard and whatnot, is a pretty significant move. But he straight up knew, okay, this is the plan for the second half. And as you say, I think it's summed up by Arteta the other day, his press conference, basically saying that I want to wear shorts and flip flops and a t-shirt, but it's raining outside. So, I'm brave, but the day after I'm sick. It's a perfect analogy because it's all about adapting to the context. And I think there's some nice irony about it that, as you say, all the narrative, which I don't really buy too much into, but all the narrative was about how Arsenal sat deeper and whatnot, just for the week after them to accumulate the second highest XG so far in the league, to be incredibly free-flowing, not particularly rigid, and to absolutely thump Leicester without some of their best players. And obviously people say it's Leicester, but that doesn't matter. It's principle more than anything.
That game was stressing me out on Saturday, really stressing me out. Yem's asked an interesting question. At 11-11, at 11 versus 11, do you think Arsenal would have still won that game? I think they would have. I think they were looking in a really good position going into that second half. I think Manchester City looked, off their feet. I thought they looked a little bit taken aback by the way Arsenal came and played. And that first half, the end of the first half, Arsenal absolutely dominated Manchester City, in my opinion. I thought they were the better side, very positive in what they were trying to do. And I was really excited by the prospect of the second half and what it could bring. But then obviously the Trossard thing completely changed it. Matt, are you in agreement? You think that 11 versus 11 Arsenal would have won that game?
I am, yep. I think the only reason I answer that a tiny bit hesitantly, which I definitely do agree, but I think almost like a question for you here, which I think is quite an interesting one. Do you think mentally and tactics-wise, that Arteta was prepared to be very pragmatic and to sit really deep in the second half? Because, as you say, we ended the second half, the first half, really, really strong. So, do you think that if 11 men are on that pitch, we go on about our business in the same way, and then we risk conceding counters and whatnot? Because it's a big mental thing, I think.
Not as deep. That was the most extreme game of defense against attack I've ever seen. Like, the second you go past the halfway line, everyone's shouting, "Get back! Get yourself back!" And like, if any of them went anywhere further than that, I think it was I don't think Arsenal would ever plan to be that defensive with 11 players on the pitch. But this is my thinking is I'm sure Arsenal prepare for certain situations where they're a man down at a big away ground and they've got something to protect. I'm sure that's something that they have prepared and they have gone through in the training ground. I don't think that would have been the first time they would have had, 10 players against 11. I think that would have been a sort of, like a preset in some ways, if you know what I mean, a preset formation that they've got there in their kind of pocket in case they need it. And
I think what's interesting as well, just quickly to say, in terms of saying that like this is something they've prepared for, is this season's almost had shades of 2020 to 21 season where we weren't playing necessarily overly bad, but every game or every other game we'd find ourselves in a half decent position and we'd get a red card stupidly. I remember against Burnley, I think it was Xhaka who got sent off. I remember against Southampton, I think it was Gabriel who got sent off. And I think people underestimate quite how hard it is to play with 10 men, particularly on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
So I think that's just worth mentioning as well with what you're saying. But carry on.
Mm.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no way. I mean, I think you haven't hit the nail on the head. There's no way any team would go down to Tenet City and go and attack. I think honestly, Arteta, I feel like he was going to get criticised either way by some people. I think a lot of people did see it for what it was and were like, he didn't really have an option, fair play. But I think if he went up there and attacked, then he would have been called naive. I think a lot of people would have gone, oh, you've got something to protect. Why are you going to attack against the best team in the world with a man down? I think he would have been called naive if he did that. But he gets called negative for doing what he did. So, I mean, regardless, yes, I was worried when Arsenal went down to the low block.
Not really.
Personally, I mean, there was a phase when I was like, Arsenal were going to win this, but then the John Stones one went in. But I mean, I didn't feel that massive crushing disappointment. I felt disappointed, but I didn't feel like if they'd scored another after that, then yeah, by far that would have been really tough to take. But I think, yeah, I mean the defense was incredible, and I think I did get a bit worried when a few of them started to drop with injuries. You know, Kivior coming on, Miles Lewis Kelly coming on. I couldn't believe it when I saw him coming on. But I think it's great to see Arteta putting faith in the young players, and the young players are something I want to come on to talk about. Ethan Munyeri coming on against Leicester in Arsenal's 4-2 win over them. I think it was really telling. I did put a tweet out, but I thought it was really, really telling, guys. And please do get in the comments about this. I thought it was a massive moment for Arteta to put his faith in Ethan Munyeri when Arsenal were 2-2 going into the final minutes in this game, and he puts him on to go out there and make a difference. And he nearly scored himself. Imagine if he scored that shot. That would have been incredible. But I don't know about you, Matt, but I think it really kind of revealed to me about Winery. It kind of I learned a lot more about him in that moment, in the context of if you're a young player in that situation, you can freeze, you can just kind of do the not the bare minimum, but you can survive, I guess. Just pass the ball around, do what you want. But Winery really got stuck in, tried to make a difference, and he drove forward. And I think that's something that Arsenal had been missing a little bit in midfield. But I think that said to me all I needed to know about Winery. I don't know about you, Matt, but that told me a lot about his character, I found personally.
I felt like I saw a bit of like this is a bit of a rogue random one, which I've not really seen anyone say, and it's just popped in my head. But I
Mm.
feel like I saw a bit of Jack Wilshere about him at times.
Okay.
Like even in that 10-minute cameo, I think the moment he comes on that pitch, it's genuinely like it's out of a movie.
Mm.
The first thing he does is run past 3 or 4 Leicester players that they're not even there. The ball's so close to his feet, and then just will try to put one bottom bins and great save from the keeper. And from that moment, the crowd was just like, "Oh my god!" It's like this guy. You can already tell he just has it. And I feel like Wilshere, the type of player who'd very much take the game by the scruff of the neck, particularly as young as he was. People make Fabregas comparisons as well, which is very understandable. A player who's so young, but has so much maturity and so much quality and is so fearless. And I feel like Wanyeri, I feel like he gave me shades of Wilshere in the sense of coming on and just being completely and utterly fearless. Such good close control dribbling too. But I also thought the tackle in the 90th minute
Oh
was,
yeah,
that's also in
yeah.
terms
But
of talking
Jack,
about him.
if that was Jack, he'd probably get sent off for it and mess it up. No, it's ironic you say that because obviously he will have spent a lot of time with Jack Wilshere, who is the under-18s coach. And I don't know if you guys saw, or I'm sure many people have seen the Made in Hale End documentary and seeing the development of Ethan Winery and Miles Lewis Skelly. You really get to see that in those episodes. And I had a bit of a full circle moment, Matt. I don't know about you, but I think 3 years ago I wrote a piece up, having spoken to a scout at Arsenal. I wrote a piece up about Lewis Kelly and Winery, and it went everywhere. This piece did just because there wouldn't. I mean, I guess maybe it was slightly irresponsible as well in some ways, as you don't want to hype up these young players so much. But this person that worked at Arsenal told me about these two, and he said something like, if these two don't get an opportunity in the first team in the next 2 to 3 years, then what's the point in even being here? Like, we're all guessing, basically, something like that. And they both had opportunities in the first team in the last few years. And for that moment, for me, I was just like, it's a cool moment, and I think says a lot about the talent of these two, because there's been so much talk within Arsenal about these two for so long now, and we're finally starting to see them pushed out there. And man, they're so exciting, and I think it will be interesting to see what the team's like on Saturday when Southampton come to Arsenal. Could they potentially be involved? I've seen there's no Ben White, no Jurian Timber in training from today. Maybe put Miles Lewis Skelly in there. What do you think about that, Matt?
I personally love to see it, and I think
Mm.
it almost comes down to the point of what people are kind of saying. If they weren't 17 years of age, or 18 in Lewis Kelly's case, but about a week ago in that case,
Oh yeah,
would would they be starting week in, week out? And it's difficult because I think as fans, we're always desperate to point a bit of an academy narrative. But I think often the academy narrative comes with people who haven't really watched them in a big way. So, like
mm.
in the past, people would kind of be like, "Oh, throw this guy and throw this guy and throw this guy in." So, like last season, I think there's quite a lot of irony about the fact that Arteta didn't play 15 or sorry 16-year-olds in the Champions League for 10 minutes or so because it's like ruining opportunities or not showing a pathway. And then the season after, not only to have a brilliant game against Bolton, where they had the complete license and freedom and played 90 minutes while Lewis Kelly had to go off in an injury, but you get the point. And so many youth players played in that game. But then for Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis Skelly to come on back-to-back weeks against City and Tottenham Hotspur away from home, and then also to add midweek, Lewis Skelly coming on against PSG. And it's like, it very much just shows you that these youth players are touted for a very, very long time. What you say about, the scout you spoke to a few years ago, I think it's really interesting because it ties in with an article the other day. I think it might have been Sammy Mokba, but it might be someone completely different. It was about Ethan Nwaneri. It might be the I can't remember. But either way, it was a really good article. It was really interesting. And it was about how Nwaneri's essentially been a talent touted for so long. So since like 12 years old, he's always been seen like a really high up young player. And obviously, there's always hype about young players, and whether they actually make it is a different story. But it's just really interesting quite how long some of these youth players are touted or looked at for, and
Yeah,
how they're not just here by coincidence. Arteta knew about from Nwaneri from pretty much when he first came in, I think, from what the
yeah,
article said.
yeah. No, I did see those quotes as well, saying about how I think it was when he was still 13 and Arteta came in. He was someone that was brought to his attention straight away. So yeah, man, they've got such exciting futures, and for me, I just hope that the sample size is so small now from academy players coming through and staying there. We've seen teams kind of float around and have opportunities, but this summer was a big one with Eddie Nketiah, Smith Rowe heading out on permanent moves, Reece Nelson on a loan, and let's be honest, will probably eventually be a permanent move. Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis Skelly are the next generation of these players coming through, and I just hope that for their sakes, I just hope they can have an impact. And the only player that's come in from the academy and stayed there and matched the level and quality of Arteta's standards is Bukayo Saka. And I mean, I don't. We've spoken about Saka for so long. I don't think we need to put any more praise and respect on his name just because it's just standard now. People know how good he is. But I just hope that Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly can have that kind of impact and make their way into the team. Because for me personally, I think seeing academy players thrive and being in the first team is one of the most satisfying things in football, in my opinion.
100%.
Yeah,
I think as well, it is just as you say, it is special. Young players coming through, you always just want to see it as a fan, but can't lie, do that thing where you have a point, forget it for like 1 second, try to talk your way to remember it, don't remember it, move on.
no
Try
worries,
and get
mate.
back
No
to
worries.
it.
That's right. Whilst you think of that, I will just say thank you to everyone tuned in at the moment. About 250 people tuned in, if you're watching on Twitter, there is a link just below the Twitter video thing you're watching at the moment. That will take you to our YouTube channel. So if you can click that and subscribe, that would mean a lot to us. We are doing regular streams throughout the season, lots of Arsenal content, lots of great guests, and we're hoping to head into studio soon as well to bring you some more higher quality episodes visually too. So yeah, please do subscribe if you can. It would mean a lot to us. Matt, on that note of Arsenal and incredible defensive quality so far this season, I want to talk about the defence as a whole. But first of all, can we just focus on the two centre backs, William Saliba and Gabriel? We've known of Saliba. We've known both their quality for a long time, but Saliba specifically has almost been this kind of Galactico centre back in the last few years that is just now everyone around the world knows who he is and knows how good he is, especially since his recent success for France as well, playing in that team. But I put a tweet out the other day saying about how Gabriel seems to have also gained a lot of respect very quickly in the last kind of month. And I think that does correlate with him scoring some goals too and big away performances. But I don't know about you, Matt, but what do you think? Do you think Gabriel's starting to get his flowers, starting to get more of the respect from a wider perspective, from not just within Arsenal, but around as well?
To be honest, I think from around, definitely. I don't know if you saw today, there was a clip of Antonio Rudiger, I can't remember which,
Mm.
coming on, I think it was Culture Cam's podcast. I can't remember what it was specifically. And he was saying that two of the best defenders in the world, or two of his favourite defenders at the minute, alongside Virgil van Dijk, are the Arsenal duo of William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. And I think that, partnered with the fact he's starting for Brazil now and playing regularly for Brazil, and that's only going to help his general perception. But I think in terms of the Arsenal fan base, there's always going to be people who are a bit strange about things, and there's always going to be this notion, I think, that Arsenal are such a top side that when a player goes through a rough patch, for most of the squad, they'll always be seen as not replaceable, but they can be upgraded in the future. And I think Gabriel's always been one of those names, which I've never personally understood. But I think that's just how Twitter's been. Ben White was one of them, and Timber, now the discourse with that one. And I think in terms of the general respect, Gabriel was had a lot. Because I think when he first joined Arsenal, he was a great defender, but he would have one too many mistakes, which for his general perception, people would tuck into a 5:30 game or whatever with Arsenal, and if it was a Gabriel mistake, that instantly just hurts the perception. We saw it with John Stones for a good while with City. The earlier mistakes in his career kind of just affected how he was rated for a good while. And I think it was the exact same for Gabriel, but now it's got to a point that not only has he got the most goals out of any defender since he joined or something along those lines, not only does he keep doing it in big games and games that matter and in tough away games, not only is he part of the best defensive record in the league, if not the world, but people are also acknowledging how good he is as a player. And I think it's difficult to change a narrative, because I believe in general football nowadays is more than anything built off narratives than it is of what's actually happening. So, for example, if you watch one Chelsea game, for example, and Robert Sanchez makes a mistake, that instant perception is that Robert Sanchez is mistake prone. It doesn't matter how many 3 p.m. kickoffs or how many wins Chelsea have, it won't change anything. So it takes a good while for you to almost flip that perception around. And I think Gabriel's not just done that, but he's done that in a way where he's really getting rated by the outside world as one of the best on the planet. And by everyone in football, I'm sure he's rated immensely highly. And I could not be happier for him. And I always remember when he replied to my tweet, which I still don't really know what it meant.
Yeah, can we? Yeah, I mean, we need to talk about that because I can't find the tweet. I've just pulled open Twitter. I'm not going to be able to find it.
If you type XIX on his account, I think you'll be able to find it. I still am so confused though.
Do you think? Yeah. So I mean, for context, I can't find it. For context, he's. What did you post? You posted just basically a video, a tweet bigging him up, right?
So I posted a TikTok video, basically
Right.
bigging him up, saying like, he's a great defender and whatnot. And the mistake thing is a bit overdone. Obviously, he makes mistakes, but I can't remember the exact reasoning it was. But it was defending him. It was really appreciating him as a player and how good he is. And completely out of nowhere, he just replied XIX. And I think the most hilarious thing about all of this was it was the January transfer window. So if you look at the quotes today, you've got a bunch of people thinking it's a relation to Mudryk, which I think is absolutely hilarious now to think about. But I'd love to know what that was. Like, I'd love to
How?
meet him one day and be like, what is
Yeah,
that referencing?
yeah. Maybe you'll bump into him around North London, like you did with Gabriel Martinelli. Yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? I couldn't tell you. Is it like a smiley face, maybe like an extended for smiley face?
I
I
don't
don't
think so.
know.
I'll try to find the tweet, but I don't think
No,
so.
yeah. I mean, we wouldn't be able to show it, but yeah, it's okay. Bizarre, mate, bizarre. But Matt, with also with Arsenal's defence, fullback on both sides, more the left than the right, has been an area of concern and struggle for a long time, but specifically the past few years. And Zinchenko's not been able to stay fit. Tomiyasu's not been able to stay fit. But now Arsenal have got Jurriën Timber and Ricardo Calafiori, who can both, Timber especially can play both sides. It looks really impressive, I think. But they've added to that's there. You've got Ben White and Tomiyasu and Zinchenko that are still there, but there's so much more depth there. How, in your opinion, how much more comfortable do you feel with the side now that you've got the quality of those players? Because Timber's been ridiculous this season, I think. He's picked up a few injuries, and I feel sorry for him. But I think him and Calafiori have both been really, really good. Timber, especially, I think, is a really exciting player. But yeah, tell me a bit about, in your opinion, how you see the fullback positions, and yeah, just talk to me about that.
I think for one, with Yuri and Timber, people often. I don't want to
Shout
say people often actually.
shout out to Logan Lawson, by the way. I don't know why he's tuned in, but there he is.
Brilliant, love that. Tend to agree.
Stop it.
But anyways, obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about the PSG game briefly as well because that is the most recent one. And with all due respect to Southampton, there's not really much point previewing it too much because Southampton are Southampton, Arsenal are Arsenal. Football's football. You never know what can happen, but there's not much to
I'm
really say.
I'm not going to comment on that, but carry on.
Who knows? But football's football. You never know what can happen. But anyhow, on that PSG game, I think that first half or that Bruno red card was.
Bruno
Oh
red
wait,
card
wait. Is he being sent off?
again.
Surely not. Are you saying that as a talking point?
No, I'm not saying that as a talking. Sorry,
No, I
feel
mean
free
is
to just.
Yen saying that as a talking point? Has he been sent off?
Or has he been sent off? I will
He's on a
confirm that.
yellow, so
Matt, you carry on with what you were saying. I will research and let you know.
perfect. Yeah, on the PSG game, I think that first half from Timber was almost as good a performance as I've seen from a fullback. And I don't want to overdo it because it's my team or it's a player I like or anything like that. But I thought he was genuinely sensational. And I think Bradley Barcola has been in phenomenal form for PSG this season. He's such a good, tricky winger. And particularly without Mbappe, I feel like the burden on PSG has become a lot lighter in terms of I feel like everything would be run by. Oh, he actually has been. I've just seen on.
I can confirm Bruno Fernandes has been sent off. Breaking news: Bruno Fernandes has been sent off.
Football is
Carry
the
on, Matt.
funniest thing ever. I just have to quickly say, football is the funniest sport of all time. He's not been sent off, I don't think, in his career, or at least not for United. He gets a red card, which was complete nonsense, with all due respect, against Spurs, and it's been overturned. To then get another red card the game after. My word. Anyways,
Can I just say as well,
um,
Alex Cook's having a bit of a meltdown on Twitter. He's gone 3-2 down, and he's bringing on Evans and Maguire. What am I watching here? Sorry, we shouldn't laugh. I mean, we should, but we shouldn't.
oh. I mean, they'll
Sorry, carry
probably
on.
beat Villa on the weekend because football's weird.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think he was and like that PSG, that burden on PSG. Although it's weird to say you'd rather play PSG with Mbappe than without, I feel like that burden on PSG, which Mbappe had and Neymar had and Messi had, as much as they're such superstars, has kind of evaporated now. Or it's like it's now Luis Campos's PSG as opposed to Mbappe's PSG. And I think
Mm.
he's a brilliant technical director, and he's now being allowed to properly flourish. And I mean, the technical level of that PSG side, the technical level of Barcola, how quick he is, how good of a profile he is, for Timber to completely lock him down and to have that tackle he made in the first half was just sensational. And I think in general, it's such a difficult one, the left back position in football. I think it's gone under the radar quite how much teams have struggled with it in the last few years. Obviously, Liverpool have always had Robertson and Bayern have always had Davies. PSG have got Mendes now, so they're in a good position there. City for ages was struggling to find, the right left back. I remember Bernardo even played there when they were being quite tactical. And obviously they had Cancelo, and then the fallout happened. They had Zinchenko beforehand, and now they've got Gavardia, which is the lockdown position really from there. But I think that left back position, obviously, as you mentioned, for Arsenal has been really, really difficult. I think it's a very hard position nowadays in football to stamp down. And I think for for Arsenal to have Calafiori off that left hand side, not related to Timber here, but for Arsenal to have Calafiori, to have that different dynamic, I believe I said on stream here that left back was one of the most important positions for me for Arsenal this window. For Arsenal to have the depth in fullback and the quality in fullback to get to a point where it's like, is Ben White good enough for the team? Which he obviously, sorry, not good enough. Is Timber replacing Ben White? I think that's such a compliment to the level Timber's at, and that's such a compliment to the level the squad is now at. Because as I said earlier on, no Ben White last season, I'd be fearing. I'd be like, okay, well,
Mm.
who are we going to have to play there if Tomiyasu's
Well,
injured?
he played through injury for a lot of the season, didn't he?
Because
And I
when no one
think
else,
it, yeah, and I just think that it's almost giving him Mikel Arteta an opportunity now, because Ben White was in the stands, wasn't he, for the PSG game? It's just giving him the opportunity just to say, Ben, just relax, recover, and yeah, I think it's exciting the amount of depth Arsenal have got in that position. Just looking forward to the fixtures for the rest of October. Arsenal versus Southampton. That's on Saturday. Um, a lot of trauma attached to Arsenal's last trip to Southampton. Do you know as well? I met Theo Walcott last season, and obviously he scored one of those goals, didn't he, at the Emirates? And I regret not asking him, how did you feel when that goal went in? Because he didn't celebrate,
I
and
think
he was
it's
very,
gonna be like any ex-footballer who's played a lot of years at a club they love. It's gonna be
yeah,
bittersweet. It's almost gonna be like you're gonna have that small sense of, look at me, I'm this age and I'm still doing it against your club. But you're
yeah,
also gonna have that sense of, this is the Emirates. I've now played a big part in Arsenal not winning the title. But at the end of the day, a job is a job. Football's a
yeah.
profession. So you
But
can't
it's
just
just
hold it
yeah,
against him.
yeah, for sure. And that result as well just kind of left both sets of fans like, well, what was the point in that? Didn't help either of us at all. Like 3 points would have been a big boost for Southampton. 3 points would have kept Arsenal in the title race. A point didn't help anyone. Um, so yeah, that game was bizarre. And then Trossard hit the bar in the final minutes. Imagine if that had gone in.
Oh,
And Thomas Partey decided to shoot one into the upper tier of the North Bank. But regardless, so Arsenal versus Southampton. That's a 3 o'clock kickoff. Nothing will go wrong there, will it? Um, and then after the international break, Arsenal return away at Dean Court, Vitality Stadium. They play Logan Lawson, who commented earlier, his Bournemouth team. There's someone I work with, by the way. It's not just a random person saying I'm so handsome.
I kind of figured, to be fair.
Just to provide some context. Arsenal play away at Bournemouth in Vitality Stadium, and then Champions League against Shakhtar Donetsk at the Emirates.
Are you
And then
gonna be
there's
there for the Bournemouth one?
no Bournemouth. I will not. I'm actually going to be in London for the Bournemouth game.
Oh,
Bizarrely,
okay.
I'm working on some boxing on that day. But yes, Arsenal against Bournemouth at Vitality, Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League, and then you've got the big one, Arsenal against Liverpool at the Emirates on Sunday the 27th, before Preston North End against Arsenal in the last 16 of the League Cup. That Liverpool game, I'm still trying to find a way that I can get to that game, because I've still not been. I've been so busy, Matt. I've not been able to get to any this season, and I need to. So I'm hoping that Liverpool game. I've actually booked it off work, but I didn't get anything in the ballot. So I'm sure many people feel my pain on that front. But I need to wait until the I need to just I might need your help on an exchange session on the ticket exchange, refreshing.
As long as I get
Um,
my hourly salary, it
your
works.
hourly salary, get in
2p.
the bin. Oh, stop it, man. But yeah, against Southampton, there's not masses to preview, to be honest. I mean, I
Is
can tell you.
is is
Go
is,
on.
is beating PSG at home just so normal now that we just don't even bother talking about it?
No, because okay, no, we can talk about it. We did talk about it a little bit, but I mean, first of all, right, it's not the PSG of 2 years ago. It's nowhere
But is
near
it a
that team.
better team almost though?
No,
Like,
maybe
I
as
know
a
that sounds crazy, but it's kind of what I was saying about like it's no longer Mbappe's PSG, and that's not meant in a bad way towards Mbappe. He obviously just had a big
hmm,
control over the club.
maybe better than last season, but 2 years ago when they had Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi as their front three, I
Terrifying,
don't
to
think
be fair.
I don't think you can argue. Do you remember that window as well when they signed Messi, Hakimi, Sergio Ramos, um, Donnarumma, all in the same window? That window was outrageous.
Absolutely
Um,
ludicrous.
but yeah, um, it's not. It wasn't the same PSG of old, but it was a really impressive performance, and Arsenal got a little bit fortunate in moments with the goals. The second goal, sorry, but the first one, Matt, was a really nice move, wasn't it? With Leandro Trossard's cross to, excuse me, to Kai Havertz. A real moment of
Oh,
quality. Real moment of quality, wasn't it?
so good. And I honestly, I've always been a fan of Trossard, but I've also had my doubts over his general all-round play. I think, particularly as a match-going fan and in general as a fan, when the games are such fine margins and you've got a player who just manages to contribute to the final action so clutch and so often, you can't do anything but just completely applaud him. But at the same time, I've always had a thing with Trossard where it's like I absolutely love him and stuff. But as an all-round player, he's such a technical player. But every time he seems to play off the left or seems to play somewhere else, it's just not the same. And I feel like he's ineffective. But I feel like the last two games of Leicester at home, I thought he was brilliant. And in absence of Odegaard as well. And against PSG at home, I thought he was brilliant too. That kick
Mm,
definitely did him a bit. But I was almost like really proud of him for that, like if that makes sense, because I feel obviously, as I say, we all know he can finish really well. We all know he can contribute to the final action excellently. But his
mm,
all-round game, his ability to create, that run for the goal, driving from midfield and taking a bit of time waiting for Kai to make his run through the centre, and it's a brilliant goal really from Arsenal's perspective. And I just think Trossard, those two games are for me the best I've seen him in an Arsenal shirt. I don't know if you agree with that.
yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah,
it was good. I think it was really good. Were we sat together when he scored that lovely goal against Porto in the Champions League?
we were because
Because
we were. Wait, no,
because
no, we weren't because I think I joined
because
you at half time of that
you
game.
joined me at half time, but I was trying to remember was that goal first or second half?
I
Um,
think it was first, but I
that
might be
that
wrong.
that day is still filled with pain for me, Matt, because Arsenal took it to penalties, and the last train was leaving London, and I had to go on it. But
Oh,
yes,
felt
it was
horrible
tough,
for you.
Matt. I am looking forward to more Champions League stuff this season, though, and I'm hopeful I will be able to get up to some of the games soon. Matt, I want to ask you one final point before we do head off. Mikel Merino, I was a little bit surprised to see him on the bench, and to see him come on was like, wow, brilliant bonus. I thought he looked steady. I thought he looked good. He made a few decent interventions, and I think my biggest takeaway from it was that with him coming on, it looked like Rice went into a deeper role and Marino went into the left eight kind of position, didn't he? What were your takeaways from Marino's performance?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought he could have been a bit sharper at times, but at the end of the day, I think he didn't want to do anything complicated. And the fact, you see all the comments which are ready coming from every single time you got a new Arsenal signing, and it speaks
Mm,
volumes about how hard or how not how different we do things, so to speak, but the levels at Arsenal at the minute. What Arteta's done on and off the pitch, the quality you have to have, the ability you have to have in multiple areas and zones. And I think Marino, I don't remember the exact quote, but after the game said he's already learned like so much more than he almost already has in just the few weeks or the few months he's been at Arsenal. And, obviously, as you say, him coming on was a bit of a surprise, but it was great to see. And if he's ready for that, then more than likely will play against Southampton. Didn't look overly sharp on the ball or anything. Made a few lovely tackles, which was nice to see, even with like a really non-match fit version of himself. But he's another one where when he can get back to that full fitness version, it will be so exciting for Arsenal and such a beneficiary. What did you
And
think?
yeah, no, I thought it was good as well. But I think the most interesting thing about it is what it does for Declan Rice. And if Mourinho is going to play in this left eight kind of role, it looks like Rice would go back into a deeper six role, which he's not done for a while at Arsenal. Since Thomas Partey's come in and since Jorginho's been there, he's played the left eight role himself. And I've wondered if it is the role that gets the best out of him. I've always thought as a deeper six was where he's best, and long term, maybe that's where he's best. But I find it so intriguing, and I wonder what will happen with Thomas Partey and Marino now. Um, I don't really know, to be honest. I don't have an opinion. I think I think Thomas Partey's, as much as a lot of us were writing him off at the start of the season, I think he's definitely picked up in terms of fitness, and he's started to play a lot better. I think. Um, so I mean, it's more competition in midfield, which is all the better. But it looks like some people like Jorginho's minutes will be a lot more limited this season, just because hopefully, oh, Matt's lights gone off.
My
Hopefully,
light fell off, and I've been trying to put it on subtly, and it just fell. So
it's all right, mate. Yeah, I just think it'll be interesting, and the squad in general is in a really good place at the moment. But yes, thank you very much, Matt, for your time this evening. I think
likewise, always.
we're gonna call it there, my friend.
Should I end it on the point which I didn't say earlier because I
Have
thought
you
of it?
remembered it? Have you remembered it?
I remembered it instantly after. I managed to remember it all the way till now, so why not?
Okay, go on, sir.
Um, I think it's interesting to say that a lot of youth players, when they thrive or when they come through the sides or the big teams, is when there's an opportunity. And I know that goes without saying, but it's almost like an open door moment. And I think the best example I can think of is Kobe Mainu getting thrown in for Man United against Everton away last season. He
Mm,
came in there. No one had really heard too much about him. Obviously, a very talented young player, but he came in because there was a bunch of injuries. And Wanyeri probably wouldn't have come on against Leicester if it wasn't for Odegaard's absence and whatnot too. So it's almost that moral or that lesson of when a player gets that chance. Obviously, it's
oh
different for
my word,
players.
three
What's that?
three.
Really? Who scored for United? Wow.
Harry Maguire.
Good for him. For good lord.
Oh, fair enough.
Uh,
That's funny as well.
yeah.
After I saw Alex Crook tweeted that um, he needs to
He's
go and
the
he's brought
super
on
sub.
Maguire.
He's the super sub of all time. Not of all
Yeah,
time. But
that. Yeah, sorry, go on, mate.
that's all right. I'll just end it with, and then you want to say what you were going to say. With like essentially,
That's full time, by
young
the way.
players, very mental game. I'll see some of the highlights of that. At the end of the day, youth players get their chances because of other opening door moments, and those opening door moments should almost be like a lesson that youth players sometimes they'll even perform higher than their actual level because they get the chance. It's not guaranteed you get a chance at a Liverpool, an Arsenal, a City, a Chelsea, etc., etc. But when you get that chance, you've got to take it with both hands. And that's exactly what a lot of top young players have done. So the general thing is you just never know when you're going to give a youth player a chance and they're going to take it with both hands and play with all the character, all the fearlessness, and end up being a long-term solution.
Yeah, and I hope that some of the young players at Arsenal at the moment can be a long term solution. Matt, it's been a pleasure, as always, to speak to you. Arsenal against Southampton. That's the next game in the Premier League. Shout out to everyone that's been involved in the chat. Shout out to Yem. I hope you're feeling better soon, my friend. Uh, it's been great to be back. We will return just before the end of the international break to preview the Bournemouth game. Lots to talk about. Make sure, again, as I said, if you can, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Just over 250 people tuned in at the moment. So if you go underneath the tweet at the moment that you're looking at, there is a link to our YouTube channel. So if you can support us and drop us a subscribe, then that is very much appreciated. Matt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Please do leave a like on the video. Follow us at AFC Newsday on Twitter, and we will catch you next time.